To store food and water.
Yes, correct. So basically vacuole store, their main function is storage, right? Okay. So now if I'm saying a cell is going to divide, like the main purpose of a cell is to divide, do you think it needs to have storage component?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No. Okay, you can think over it. Take like 30 seconds or so. Just think. My question is, I'm saying that there is one cell. Okay, first let me just uh, zoom in. Maybe yeah, this would be better. Huh. Okay. So I'm saying there is one cell. Okay, and the main function of this cell is to divide, which means it only needs to keep forming daughter cells, right? And then divide again, etc. So do you think this cell should have storage component? Does this cell
Yes,
need?
ma'am.
Okay, still you say yes. Okay, what about the others?
No, ma'am. I don't think so.
Okay, no. Okay, fine. So we have still one or two of you saying yes, the others saying no. Okay, so the answer here will be no, right? They will not require the storage component. Yes, yes, Suhani. They will not be requiring the storage component. Why? Why? Because the main task of this cell is to create daughter cell. I don't want this cell to, stay and then perform some kind of function, or I do not need it to do something till it is alive, something like that, right? I don't uh, needed to perform anything other than division, right? So now what happens is, a, it does not need to store anything. Why? Because vacuole is like a secondary storage mechanism. It's not like the only way it gets food or it gets energy to divide. This basically is like a reserve. How should I say? This compares, you can relate it to like fat in humans, right? We have fat. Why? Because fat is like a reserve food. When suppose you've not eaten for a few hours or generally for a few days, that time your fat will break down to give you energy, which is nothing but glucose, right? So vacuole is something similar in cells, right? Plant cells, moreover. So it is also a storage kind of thing, right? So I don't need this cell to have any kind of reserve. Why? Because I want it to divide, and that is the main purpose of this cell. It does not need to do anything else, right? After it is divided, then I will label these people, I'll give them tasks like we spoke about yesterday, and then they become permanent tissues or permanent cells, right? That time, yes, they will need vacuole or etc. So that time when they differentiate, all the other information components or whatever the genetic code is there, that will make sure that whatever necessary stuff it needs to perform this task is there in the cell. Okay. Yeah, like if it is made into parenchyma's main uh, function itself is storage, right? So they'll definitely be having vacuole. Okay, something like that. So yeah, one reason is it does not need reserve, right? Okay, I'll write it down here. No reserve, does not need. And second thing is vacuole again will create a hindrance to divide, right? Again, which means the cell has to use more energy to break like this, and then ensure that okay, this is also given equally to both the cells, right? So because of these two reasons, they don't have vacuoles. The same thing, like all these points have the same reason, being they have dense cytoplasm, they have thin cell walls, prominent nuclei, and they lack vacuoles. because their main function is division, cell division, right? That's all. Okay. Okay then. Then let's go ahead and discuss what we were left with. Okay. I'll just quickly go back to this flowchart. So yesterday's class, this is just a recap I'm doing so that before we continue, we are all on the same page, right? So in yesterday's class, we've discussed meristematic tissues, the three types, and in permanent tissues, we finished simple, right? We've discussed parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, right? And in today's class, we will start with complex permanent tissue, which will complete plant tissues, and then we'll go on to animal tissues. Okay. Yes. So we discussed all this cork, epidermis. Yes, this was the last slide we spoke about yesterday. Okay, so this is the last type of permanent tissues, which is complex permanent tissues, right? So permanent tissues are three types. Basically, yeah, the one type is not mentioned in the flowchart, right? I'll just write it here. Permanent are three. One is simple permanent, right? One is protective, and one is complex. Okay, if you want, you can draw this small flowchart in your notebook because the protective one is missing in the main flowchart in the PPT. The main reason being that. Yeah, so under simple you have parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma, right? You can write the complete words. Under protective you have epidermis and cork, right? We discussed. And under complex you will have xylem and phloem, right? Okay. So as the name suggests, complex is definitely made up of more than one type of cell, right? If you remember in yesterday's class, we said that simple permanent tissues have only one type of cell, right? So like that, complex will have more than one, and all these different type of cells. So there is one cell doing some kind of A function, right? Then there is B cell doing B function, right? So these will all come together. Uh, Let me draw an arrow instead. Yeah, these will all come together to perform the main function, right? Let's say X. So different cells, they come together. This is what the second point means, right? Some points which seem like difficult or which seem maybe hard to understand, I've just picked them up directly from NCRT and I'm explaining it here so that if you go back and read the textbook and if you feel that you can't understand that point, you can revisit this, right? Or revisit your notes. You can write down whatever um, I have said. Yeah. Okay. So yes, this is what this point means, that these different type of cells like cell A, cell B, they'll be performing different functions. For example, this is involved in protection or this is involved in storage, right? So they come together and perform a common function. Okay. You can understand this better when we talk in detail about xylem and phloem, right? Okay. Let me erase this. Yeah. Yes. So xylem and phloem are the two tissues which fall under complex permanent. They are also called conducting tissues. Right? Okay. Why conducting? Because they conduct food and water. Right? Okay. And they constitute something called a vascular bundle. So if you read the word conducting in a paper or anywhere in any question, if you read the word name conducting tissues, or name the vascular bundle, right? So all these different terms, or the third one can also be complex permeabilist one, right? So if you see any of these three wordings in the question, in the paper, anywhere, they all basically just refer to xylem and phloem. They are the different names for xylem and phloem. So don't end up just writing one. Don't just say xylem and think that it's the correct answer. Both need to be there. So for these three terms, you can make a note of this. I'll write it here, right? The answer is xylem and phloem. Okay. Yes. At this stage, you don't really need to know what vascular means. Basically, you can remember it something like vascular is something to do with transport. You can remember it like that. Conducting also, why conducting? Because it conducts food and water, right? Or it transports food and water. Okay. Vascular or conductive tissue is a distinctive feature of complex plants, one that has made possible their survival in the terrestrial environment. Okay, terrestrial here refers to basically land. Okay, land, the other word for land is terrestrial, like another word for water would be aquatic, right? We call it like that, right? So basically, what they're trying to say here is that conductive tissues are distinctive feature, meaning this is the feature which makes them stand out from the other simple plants, or the feature which has ensured their survival over the years, over these few million years, right? Okay, that's what it means. And okay, why are they saying uh, it is a distinctive feature? I'll just come to that. Okay. So we all know that plants, let me, yeah, fine. Plants perform photosynthesis, right? They make their own food by photosynthesis, right? Plants are autotrophs. They make their own food, right? Okay. So the main job of xylem and phloem is to transport this food and water to all the other parts of the plant, right? Okay. So because these tissues are the ones involved in the transportation, they ensure that all parts of the plant have food or have energy to carry out their other activities, right? Which is why this is very necessary. So even if plants can perform photosynthesis, the main region where photosynthesis occurs is just the leaves, right? Or in some cases, in few rare cases, even the stem, some parts of the stem, right? Okay, so these tissues make sure that all the other parts, for example, there is a flower here, let's say, right? And then there are the roots, right? The stem portion. So these tissues ensure that this food, which is made in the leaves by photosynthesis, is transported to all other parts of the plant, and they also have energy to perform their tasks, right? That is why this xylem and phloem both are part of this bundle which has made the survival of plants possible. That's all this point tries to say. Okay. This is an image of a transverse section of a stem. Section basically, sorry, cross section of a stem. So basically, suppose you have a plant like this, which is upright. Okay. This is the leaf. And if I were to, let's say, just take a knife or take a scissor and cut it like this, right? Let me draw a scissor so that, yeah. So if I am snipping it like this, okay, and I have made a cut here, so you will be able to see the stem like this, right? So this region, if you look at it from the top, this is how it look like. So this is a cross section. If you want, I'll write it stem, right? Okay. This is just this doodle here just to make you understand what cross section is, right? If you just snip a part of the stem anywhere, this is how it will look like. Okay, here you can see I tried to get this diagram because yesterday I was not able to show you the location of uh, parenchyma, collenchyma, etc. Right? Sclerenchyma we discussed because it is specific, but these two I was not able to show, right? So I tried to add this image. So the first layer is the protective layer, which is the epidermis. Below that you have collenchyma, parenchyma, right? Like I said, parenchyma's main function is just to bridge the gap, to not leave any gap, and ensure that the plant structure stays firm, right? And pith, you can remember it to be the central part of the stem. At this stage, that much information is enough, right? And vascular bundle is nothing but, who can tell me?
Ma'am, xylem and phloem.
Yes, correct. So vascular bundle is nothing but xylem and phloem, right? I hope the others are also here with me and awake, right? If you feel I'm going like fast, or if some part is not understandable, let me know. Okay. So this much portion of the vascular bundle is enlarged in this diagram and shown here. Again, here this is just to give you an idea. This is not usually asked. You don't need to draw it, but this is just for you to understand where exactly what tissues are in a stem, right? Okay, so this is the xylem, this is the vascular cambium, this is the phloem, and this part is the bundled sheath. Sheath basically refers to a covering. Okay, this is one word you might come across a lot. So swords also have sheath, right? The covering, that case for a sword is called a sheath. Like that, the covering for these bundles will be called a bundle sheath. Okay, yeah, this is just a rough idea. Okay, so this table has the different types, or basically components of xylem. Xylem has, yeah, so first thing here is what I had told you yesterday, that you need to remember three things for every tissue. One is characteristic, location, and function, right? So it is given here, right? So characteristics of xylem is it is thick walled cells, and most of the cells are dead, right? It is present in stem, roots, and leaves, basically everywhere, right? Because it's a transporting tissue, so it has to be present everywhere. And what is its function is it is involved in the movement of water and minerals. Phloem is involved in food. You can remember the sounds, right? PH also sounds something similar to FO, right? So phloem food, and xylem for water. Okay. So xylem has four main components. The first one being tracheids, second one being xylem vessels, third one being xylem parenchyma, and fourth one being xylem fibers. Yes. So this much information which is given in the table is sufficient. I mean, you don't need to know anything other than this, right? Because maximum usually the kind of question you get would be what are the components of xylem, right? They don't even ask you the particular function of the particular component, right? Yeah, but you need to know that xylem has four components, mainly these four, and you need to know, uh, yeah, we'll come to the other one which is there in the next slide. Yeah, I'll tell you what else you need to remember. Okay. Yeah, so tracheids are elongated cells. We'll cover this in the next slide. There are diagrams and the points there also. Okay. Yeah. Yes. So xylem are the four components like we spoke about: tracheids, vessels, fibers, and parenchyma. Right. So this is the diagram which is there in the NCERT textbook also. This one right here. Okay. Usually they will ask you to identify. Again, drawing does not really, they don't really ask you to draw this tissue. But yes, labeling will come. They might just give you these three, and then ask you which is the tracheid, which is the vessel, and which is the parenchyma. Right. And this image here, this one which I have just made a hash here. This is just for you to understand how they are arranged. So in xylem, this is how the arrangement would look like. There will be tracheids, then there will be fibers next to that, and then there will be the vessels, right? And then it will be xylem parenchyma. They are arranged like this. Okay. Pits are basically small, you can say, like hollow structure kind of things, right? Something like this is what is called pits, right? And vessel, again, there is this feature, this window like things are just known as perforations. Let me write it again. Perforations, right? Perforation basically means holes, right? Perforated, if you hear the word perforated anywhere, it basically means it's something which has holes. Okay. Yeah, sometimes they do ask this question that which part or which component of the xylem has perforations or has perforated wall. You can write down that term also. Do you want me to write the spelling? It is perforated walls. Okay. So if they ask you this question, you should automatically know that it is vessels, right? Vessels have perforated walls or perforations. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically all you need to know. All the four components perform the similar kind of function where they are involved in transport of water and minerals. Vertically basically refers to up and down, right? Okay. Fibers are mainly supportive in function. Yeah. Okay, now coming to phloem, again same. So this is like a similar kind of table for both xylem and phloem. The what should I say? The framework of the table is similar. The first row they have mentioned particular information for xylem as a whole, and then they have given you the details for the components. Right? Same thing for phloem. So characteristic as a whole, there is nothing worth mentioning. So you just need to know that it's a complex permanent tissue. Where does it lie? Just beneath the bark of the tree, and it provides a passage for the downward movement of food. Right? Okay. And again, this also has four components like xylem. So both have four, right? Out of which fibers and parenchyma are same for both, right? So xylem has xylem fibers or just fibers. Phloem will have phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. And the other two, which are different terms, are sieve tubes and companion cells. Again, sieve tubes here have perforated walls, right? Something like xylem. So xylem vessels have perforated walls, and sieve tubes in phloem have perforated walls, right? Okay. Translocation basically means movement of food. So if you are talking about movement of food, there is a particular term given to it which is translocation. So it's okay even if you just write movement of food. I'm writing it here. Okay. Yes. Again, like Xylem, you are usually just asked the names of these four components. In detail, their specific function is rarely asked, but yeah, rarely asked. It's not usually asked that much. So if you know the overall function that yes, all of them are involved in transport of food, is should be sufficient, right? Okay. Transports food, helps the sieve tubes, right? Transports food, provides strength. Okay. Yes. Here you need to know that, like in xylem, most of them were dead. In phloem, most of them are living. Okay, except for phloem fibers, which I have highlighted here.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Tell me.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Ma'am, in the phloem table, it was written that it has the passage for downward movement on food. Ma'am, then what about upwards?
Okay, for that, just a second. I have yes. So phloem ideally will have two-way flow, right? And xylem will have one-way flow. Uh, I think they have mentioned downward just for simplicity's sake. So you can make it both way here. You can add upward here, right? The thing with xylem transport water in both the directions, it will move only one way, which is usually from down to up. Yeah, it does active transport, right? Yeah, phloem will be both ways. Yes. So yeah, you good thing you brought it up. Phloem is both upwards and downwards. It is a two-way flow. So definitely it will transport the food to all parts of the plant.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just come back to this image since we spoke about it, right? So xylem transports water from down to up. Okay, there is this interesting question you might have here, right? And let me see. I don't think you. Okay. Okay, let me see if you can answer this question which I have here. Okay. This is just a rough plant, right? Uh, but as you know, so I made this statement here saying that xylem carries water from, let me show it with purple pen. So I'm saying that xylem carries water in this direction from down to up. Okay. But I have a question that gravity pulls everything down. No. Then how is xylem? Why is xylem carrying water from down to up? Can anybody try? Okay, I have an answer. Sujal, okay, that would be how it is pulling. My question is why? Why is the water movement down to up?
Ma'am, because of transpiration.
Uh, okay, I can consider that. Yes, Sujal, now you got the correct answer. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Yes, Samruddhi, your answer I can consider partly, but the main thing I was looking for here is roots collect water, right? That's why the movement is from down to up. Uh, so Sujal's answer saying that it moves because of the pressure, and Samruddhi's answer saying that it is because of transpiration. So these points will come under how does it move against gravity, right? So you all answered the how. That is also good. I'm glad, right? My question was why. So why would be because roots collect water, right? So what happens is all these, let me use some different color, green colors, right? All these roots, they will take up water molecules through osmosis, right? I think we had discussed it in cell chapter also, right? That roots take up water by osmosis. Yeah, so they'll take up these water molecules and then the xylem will then carry all these water molecules upwards to the leaves, right? And give it to them for photosynthesis or for any other purposes, etc. Whatever activity is required, right? Okay. So that's why xylem is only one way flow because, yeah, there is no need for the water to come down. The water needs to be only given to the parts, so there is no exchange, right? And once it reaches the leaves, any excess water is given out through the stomata or by transpiration, etc., right? So that's why there is only one way flow. Okay, versus phloem, what happens is the food needs to be delivered to all parts, right? Because the food is manufactured only in the leaves. Oh, okay, the entire thing got erased. Okay, let me just use a different color. Yeah, suppose I'm using orange color to denote food, orange boxes, right? So the food is made here in the leaves, but then I have to ensure that it is given to this person, this part here also, here, etc. Right? So that's why food will move both up and down. Or maybe if there is some part, uh, let's say there is some part above, right? Okay. Yeah, suppose the plant is like this, there is some part above, there is a flower here, right? So which means this food has to be delivered here also, right? So there will be both up and down movement of food. Yes. This is sometimes asked as a give reason question. That is why I've taken the time to explain it to you why xylem is one way and why phloem is two way, right? I hope the concept is clear. Is it clear? Did you all understand? Okay, cool.
Yes, miss.
Yes, cool, cool. Okay, let me just erase this. Yeah, if you want, you can draw this rough plant thing. This is just for understanding. So you can also, maybe after class, you can add colors to it, right? And for now, you can just take a screenshot of this page so that you can draw it later, right? Okay. Okay, I'll go back to the previous slide since we are yet to complete that. Yes. So phloem, yeah, one more distinguishing point between xylem and phloem would be one we spoke about the flow, right? And the second point, which is very important, is xylem is mostly dead, right? Whereas phloem is mostly living. Part of it because for that you need to have a little bit more understanding of the cell functions, etc., right? But at whereas phloem is mostly living is sufficient, right? So first point of differentiation we talked about was the flow, right? Flow or movement, or anything you can call it, right? Flow. Then the third point of difference would be the function, right? Xylem is involved in water and phloem is involved in the movement of food. Okay. Yes. So yeah, this point is important. This is usually asked as a fill in the blank, right? Dash is the only dead component of phloem. So your answer would be phloem fibers, right? Okay. Yeah. So then again, I've just listed the components here. Yeah, tubular cells with perforated walls as given in the table. The same information is there in the table, right? Phloem is unlike xylem in that the movements materials can can move in both directions. We discussed this, right? This is an important diagram. Again, asked for labeling. Sometimes they ask you to draw a rough sketch also. Uh, Mostly labeling, though. So all these parts will be blurred, and you will have to identify which is the sieve plate, which is the sieve tube, parenchyma, and companion cells. Okay, so let's go ahead. This the diagram is there in the NCERT textbook also. I mean, I've not taken a new one. I've taken the same diagram because wherever they ask you to draw a sketch or wherever they ask you to label, I have tried to stick to the NCERT from, right? Okay. Yes, this is just a flowchart of condensed flowchart of again all both the xylem and phloem components, and they are sometimes the characteristic and their function, right? So you can choose anything. You can either choose to remember, sorry, just the table, right? Or you could choose to remember the flowchart, whichever you feel comfortable remembering. Because I've just given you multiple options, right? Or if you feel your paragraph itself, anything. right? Okay. So these are again the same points. There is nothing worth explaining in this, right? In case when you go through it and in case you have uh, doubts, you can ask me, right? Okay. Yeah, we discussed this. Yeah, the this is again a difference between meristematic tissue and permanent tissues in general, right? In general. So yeah, we when before we ventured into permanent, we spoke about their basic difference, right? That meristematic tissues are usually the young ones or the tissue which is actively dividing, and permanent tissue does not divide, differentiate, right? And these are the older versions basically. Yeah, so that point is covered only in the second point here, right? So there are other differences also which are as mentioned in this table, right? Metabolically active means basically it performs different cell functions of breaking down food and getting energy, right? Because a huge amount of energy will be used up in the division process, right? So that's what metabolic means. Like suppose, usually you might have heard if you see somebody who's really skinny who can eat anything but will not put on weight. That time you look at that person and you say, Arey, your metabolic rate is very high. So metabolic means that your ability to basically break down food and convert it into energy. So that complete process is will come under metabolic activities or metabolic process, right? Should I write it here? Okay. Ability, this does not work very well. Okay. Ability to break down food to get energy. Okay. They won't ask you definition of these terms. This is for you to understand the meaning of these points. There is no point in memorizing something just for the sake of it, right? Because then if you memorize metabolic as a word without understanding the meaning, and during exam you forget, suppose you forget what it is called, you forget, was it metabolic, was it bolic, or was it some tabolic, or what was it, you forget, then the whole point will go for a toss, right? So if you know the meaning, you'll remember the word. That yeah, metabolic means breakdown, right? Okay. Yeah. So because these are involved in division, the metabolic rate is high here, or you can call it metabolically active. And here the metabolic rate is low. Why? Because it's already been given tasks, right? It does not really need to do anything apart from just staying there or just offering storage. So it does not really need energy for activity. Energy requirement is low, right? That's why it is slow. Okay. Cells do not divide, yeah, that's why they are called permanent, right? The fourth point we know very well. Anything else which needs explanation? This is a factual statement, right? The first, second, and third points are just the breakdown of the definition, right? Okay, fifth we discussed. Yes, and sixth would be the main functions, right? So meristematic tissues are involved in growth. Permanent tissues have different functions. So you can write the functions of all the three permanent tissues which you know of, right? The simple, the protective, and the complex. The simple ones provide protection, right? Sorry, the simple ones would provide storage basically, storage and maybe support. Protection would be offered by the protective ones, and conduction would be by the conducting tissues or the complex tissues. So just basically they've clubbed all the three functions in one point and said that. Yeah. Okay. This is a really nice video of they have explained the entire plant tissues in one go. You can have a look after class because in class I want to show you two more videos which are mainly animal tissues, one for epithelial and one for muscle tissues, right? So I'll show you those. This one you can see after class, right? Okay, yes. So we have animal tissues left now, right? Again, like like plant tissues, there is a complete flowchart for animal tissues also. This is very helpful when you're doing revision so that you can just tick off whatever is done. This might not make much sense at this point, but once you've read the theory twice, thrice, this will be a very helpful tool, right? Okay. So we have epithelial, muscular, connective, and nervous, out of which connective has a huge network, or should I say huge breakdown into different things. There is a chance you might get confused in which is which, so I'll cover this a little slowly and in detail, right? Okay. Epithelial is simpler compared, though there are more types, it is easy to remember if you got the grasp of it in one go. Muscular, there are only three, and nervous, at this point, you just need to know the basic diagram of a neuron. That's it. So the entire nervous system will be dealt with in detail in grade 10 in the control coordination chapter, right? So you have everything in detail there. Okay, okay, let's start. Okay, we'll start with epithelial tissues, right? Like we discussed in yesterday's class, epidermis is the protective covering for plant, right? Similarly, epithelial will be the protective covering for animals, or in this case, since we are referring mainly to human tissues, humans, right? Okay. So same, it is a covering or protective tissues, and definitely it covers the entire body. Tissue in our body, what are we covered with?
Ma'am, skin.
Yes, correct. Awesome. Okay, I have one answer in the chat. Just let me check. Yes, yes, Aryan. Awesome. I'm happy that y'all are answering. I thought in this topic is a little boring maybe for you. Okay. Yes, so definitely in humans this translates to skin, right? We have skin everywhere, right? In between the gaps of the fingers also there is a layer of skin. In every small nook and corner there is skin, right? There is like a complete cover like that. You can remember it like this. Okay, yeah, location definitely covers the entire body. Characteristics would be it's tightly packed and forms a continuous sheet. Again, same, almost same points. They mean the same, right? So it's just a repetition. And almost no intercellular spaces. Again, it's tightly packed, right? Because it forms a continuous layer. So there won't be spaces. What is the functions? Protection, of course, like we discussed yesterday. There are a few more functions here which are given, which is mainly first one would be absorption. Absorption here would be like you apply moisturizers or cold creams, right? Especially in winters, and there are times like you are generally asked to apply lotions or moisturizers or whatever cold cream kind of things immediately after you have a bath, right? Why? Because the absorption capacity that time is high because the pores are open, right? Again, I'm just taking an example for you to understand absorption, right? This could you can you know extend it to medicines also. When you apply some cream when you've got hurt, or you have a cut or anything, you apply ointment or medicine on it, that is also absorbed by the skin. So basically if you apply anything, the skin absorbs it, right? That is the extra function it performs. Secretion here would be it secretes oil, right? Oil, and there is another component known as sebum. We have glands on our skin which mainly secrete oil and sebum. Again, this, like in plants, they have this waxy substance, right? We had discussed yesterday, waxy substance which is released, so that it does not really, so the waxy substance usually has the function that it minimizes water loss. Ours, yes, water loss also, and there are a few other reasons for oil secretion, sebum secretion also. That is mainly it does not let the, how should I say, microorganisms or dirt or etc. Does not let it enter, right? The oil and sebum traps it. Acts like a trap, a wet sticky trap, and that's how it protects our skin, right? So that would be secretions, and the main important one here would be regulating the exchange of materials. So whatever enters, right? So whatever enters inside the body, I'm not saying what we eat, right? I'm saying topical or like application or through the skin. Anything which enters through the skin, right? Suppose this is your hand. Okay, anything which enters inside like this has to pass the layer of your skin, right? So that time the skin decides that, yeah, so like when you're applying moisturizers or you're applying medicine, the skin absorbs it, right? That's why sorry, how does it absorb it is because uh, it knows that it is an acceptable material, or the skin is like, yes, this can pass. It acts like a gatekeeper, right? Something we had seen in cells chapter also, right? There are some like the plasma membrane is the gatekeeper of the cell. Like that, you can consider the skin to be the main gatekeeper of any animal or any organism, like that, or humans, right? Something like that. Okay, these are the basic functions of epithelial tissues. Okay, and now there are four main types of epithelial tissues which you need to be aware of, right? Again,
Ma'am,
tell me.
ma'am, I have a doubt.
uh,
So, ma'am, can I
yes,
ask?
yeah, go ahead.
So, ma'am, if you said that skin has oil and sebum,
Yes.
so ma'am, while injection,
huh
while injecting the injection, does that oil like come out of our body, like of the skin?
no. Okay, so what happens is like we have multiple layers. Okay, so skin is just the tip or the first layer, right? There is this
Yeah.
huge fat like layer just below the skin. Okay, and below this fat layer will be your blood vessels. Okay, and then yeah, all the blood vessels, and then you will have a muscle or wherever, depending on what location you are speaking of, there will be different things. When you're injecting, what happens is you're hitting the needle here, right? So that's why so you're not really rupturing anything inside the first layer, so the oil won't come out. If you're doing something like, you're rupturing only the first layer, which is like you it's quite impossible to do. That time, yes, so that time you might not bleed, that time you might just have uh, a rash, or you might have a red region on your skin, right? Because the blood vessels are deeper. So yeah, that's why when you actually get a paper cut, right, paper cut hurts like anything. It's because the paper cut only affects like the first one or two layers, so it doesn't bleed much, and it does not repair faster either. So yeah, so it does not really come out like that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. What you are saying is when yeah, injection nahi, if you would have noticed, like if you try to um again, that this would be like not exactly sebum as such, but yeah. Okay, if I don't know how many of you tried to do this, and I would recommend like don't try to do it. It's not good. If you have a pimple and you try to pop it, you'll notice that there is some white mass and there is some whitish liquid which comes out, right? If you have a pimple or a boil.
Is that a pus? Like, is that pus?
Yes,
That
so
is
that
ma'am.
so that is a mixture of all these things. It is a mixture of sebum, it is a mixture of oil, and that whitish particle which comes out is pus, or which is, all these organisms which are trapped inside. So that time what you're saying with yeah, Sujal. So yeah, you might have seen. So that time whatever comes out would be a mixture of all these things: sebum, oil, Pus is basically the organism which is trapped in that fluid is called pus, right? Microorganisms. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so coming back to our topic, so there are four main types, mainly squamous and columnar, cuboidal, and glandular. Okay, so at this stage, let me just explain the meaning of these words, then their function would be simple to understand. Okay, squamous is basically a term given to a flat one layer cells. Okay, anything which is flat cells, which has flat cells like this, and is only one layer, right, is called squamous. Okay, so squamous there can be two subcategories. One can be simple, so you need to keep adding, I don't know if you've played this game, have you? It's called, I think, Chinese whispers or Japanese whispers, I'm not sure which is it. Right?
Chinese whisper, ma'am.
Chinese.
They're both actually.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the one where you keep adding words. Which is that one?
Ma'am, in
I think
Chinese
it's.
whisper, yeah, we have to add words to this.
I forgot because I have literally not played it in 2 years, but I think it's Japanese.
Japanese, right? Yeah, yeah, same. I have no recollection of either of them at this stage. Yes, so basically there is this game, right? There is one game. I'm not sure of the name now. Where a person says, like, suppose let's consider us, like the seven of us right now in class. Yeah, is it Japanese? Yeah, I'm really not sure, Sujal. Yes. So consider the seven of us. Suppose I say, I say a word, let's say cell, okay, and then I ask one of you, yeah. So suppose I ask Sujal then to continue. So then Sujal has to say cell and then add a word with it. Suppose he says tissues, right? So then we'll pass it on to, let's say, Suhani, right? So then she has to add a word and say cell, tissues, and then she will add maybe organ. So I'm just restricting the words to our chapter, right? Just to give you an example, right? And so on and so forth. So you basically got the idea, right? So you say the word the previous person said, and you add your own word. So you use a
Like a
similar,
memory game.
yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear. You said something?
Yeah, like a memory game.
Memory game. Yes, exactly. Yes, you're right. So, in a similar way, this is how you remember the words or the complete words for these tissues, because yeah, what happens is sometimes you just write simple and then you forget what comes after that, right? So use this Japanese whisper trick or this memory game trick or however you remember. So again, it how will you call it? It will be like this. So you write simple, then you go to squamous, right? And then you add epithelial tissue. So this is the complete name of this tissue, right? Yeah, yeah, I think I can give you an example of that person. If you've seen that movie, Dhamal, I think there is one scene where the taxi guy keeps saying his name. Have you watched the film? I'm not sure. Yes, okay, yeah, I think Sujal has done everything what I'm talking about. Cool. Yeah, 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 the South Indian guy. Exactly. Okay. So, yeah, this is just like, don't worry, I'm not giving any important reference from the film. It's just that there is this scene in a taxi where they're traveling, right? They want to reach the treasure first. So, they're traveling in this guy's taxi, and he says, they ask him, how much, Bhaiya, kitna time lagega pahunchne mein? So he says, by the time I say my name, we'll reach. So obviously, we think the name will be what, maximum 2 words or 3 words? Yeah, Suhani also remembers. Yeah, exactly. So the name you will feel that okay, maximum it will be 2 words or 3 words, right? If you include middle name. So they were very happy that okay, it's really close by. And that guy drones on for 1 hour. His name does not get over. it goes beyond some 150 words, so it's like that. So yeah, so you can remember all these funny things, and when you're writing the exam, this will also come in your head easily, right? That yeah, you remember. And I think his name also was started with S only. I'm not sure. I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm not saying it. Okay. Yeah. So basically, this is the whole name of the tissue, right? So like this, you need to write it for the others also, right? So what will this become? It will become stratified squamous epithelial tissue, like that. Columnar. Here it is only columnar. Okay. Columnar epithelial tissue, or ciliated columnar epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue, something like that. So you write epithelial here, epithelial tissue here, right? So now you know how the order works. So this goes directly here, this goes here, here, and then here, like that. Okay, okay. Okay, and yeah, squamous refers to anything which is flat and one layer. Okay. Okay, so now you might have a question ki, theek hai, we spoke about one layer. What happens if there is more than one layer, right? What happens if there is more than one layer? So that time you call it stratified. Okay, now I think it might get a little, I'll remove all this drawing of mine. Yeah, now it will get a little easy to remember. Squamous is one layer or flat, right? And stratified is more than one layer. So when I'm telling an epithelial tissue is stratified squamous epithelial tissue, basically I'm trying to say is I'm just including the flat word here, that it is flat and it is multiple layers. That's why I call it stratified, like this, right? Okay, more than one layer, right? So this is the actual scientific, or how should I say, the actual dictionary meaning of the word, that squamous refers to anything which is flat and one layer in nature. Stratified basically means the act of, distributing something in multiple layers is what stratified means, right? Okay. Yeah, columnar is easy to understand. Columnar is basically something which is in columns, right? You have rows and columns, don't you? So the rows is nothing but when you look at it like this, right? The horizontal things anywhere. I suppose you stand in row for your assembly or for some PT games, right? Or you sit, the benches in your class will be arranged in rows, something like that, right? And the vertical components are what are known as columns, right? I'll just write C here, right? So column is basically that. It will be a huge vertical kind of structure like this. So columnar basically will be like multiple columns, right? And then you have something called ciliated columnar. So cilia refers to anything which is like a small projection, right? Small hair like projections. This is again one more word which you'll keep coming across in biology. Small hair like projections, right? Humans have cilia mainly in our intestines. Okay, mainly even in intestines, I would say small intestine, because small intestine is involved in the absorption of food. So cilia is basically used to increase the surface area. That's its main function for absorption, or to like grab something like that, right? Yes, Sujal, awesome. Yep. Sorry, not pseudopodia, paramecium. Paramecium has cilia, or yeah, paramecium and amoeba, they mean the unicellular organisms, right? So they have this. Pseudopodia basically refers to the part of the unicellular organism which branches out. So if this is your amoeba, if it branches out one part of its body like this extension is called pseudopodia. Pseudo basically refers to fake. So pseudopodia is fake feet. Okay. Yes, yeah, you remember the diagram. Good, good. Yeah, so yes, you're right, Sujal. They have these finger-like projections which are known as cilia, right? Which makes them look creepy. Right, yes. So you would have come across this term while we did amoeba, right? Okay, yeah. So in humans also we have this. This is mainly in our small intestines. When we do the next slide, we'll come to the functions, the location it is there, right? Mainly small intestine. I just want you to remember this fact. Now just engrave it in your mind so that the next time you come across the word cilia again, it should just hit you automatically that yes, cilia is for increasing surface area for absorption, right? Okay, yeah. And glandular basically refers to anything which has glands is called glandular, right? Cuboidal, oh, I skipped cuboidal. Cuboidal again is a shape, right? Cuboids are shapes, right? So cuboidal is anything which has a cuboid-like shape. And glandular basically means that this tissue will have glands. Glands are anything which secretes stuff, right? Like for example, you have salivary glands, right? This would be the most common one you would have come across. There are many. So again, like you, I think in your next standard 10th only, you might do a chapter where there is all the endocrine glands, right? So you'll be learning about pancreas, adrenaline, uh, thyroid, sorry, not adrenaline, adrenal gland, thyroid, etc. Right? Salivary glands. There are different types of glands, right? All these things. Just an example. So epithelial tissue which has glands will be called glandular, right? Okay. Let's. I'll quickly show you this video, then we'll go on to the next slide. It's a good video. Okay, just tell me if the audio is proper, right? Okay.
After learning about plant tissues, let us take a look at the various types of animal tissues in detail. In case of animals, where the body is expected to perform uncountable functions simultaneously, it is obvious that
Audible, right? No issues with the video?
Ma'am, it's not clear for me.
It's really it's loud
It's
and
breaking a lot.
leaking a lot. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, it was glitching.
Okay. Let me reload the page. Okay. Okay, till the time it loads, should I just show you the... Okay, let's just wait.
ये है रोनी विया इंदौर का सख्त लौंडा मिजाज में नरमी
after learning about plant tissues, let us take a look at the various types of
Ma'am, it's no, I
Better
was
now?
still
Ma'am, it's
said.
still breaking a lot. It's not.
Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry. Can one of you type it in the chat box? I think I have some audio issue.
Ma'am, it's not clear.
Oh, it's not clear. Okay. Okay, not clear. Not clear. Okay. Got it. Uh, okay then instead of audio is not clear. Yeah, I think my system, I mean the it's not letting me, perform so many functions at one time. Okay, then what I'll do is I have this link already in the PPT, right? I'll just share this like yesterday so you can have a look at it. Right? We just do the PPT then. Sorry, I thought it would work. Okay. Okay, I'll try to reload it once more by then. Let's see. Till then we'll try doing the PPT. Okay, yes. So again, here also this table is sufficient. If you can remember, this table is more than enough for epithelial tissues. Yes, of course, and a basic diagram also, which is there in the next slide, right? So you should just be able to identify that simple squamous urea.
After learning about plant tissues, let us take a look at the various types of animal tissues in
Is it better
details.
now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, cool. Everybody, can you hear it now? Was the video okay? Should I?
No, ma'am, everything's fine.
Everything's fine? Okay, chalo. Let me play it.
In case of animals, where the body is expected to perform uncountable functions simultaneously, it is obvious that the number of tissues will also be innumerable, right? So how do we study all these? Well, we don't need to worry. For simplicity, we would prefer dividing all the animal tissues into 4 major categories depending upon their functions. Firstly, we have the one for protection, then another for connection, followed by movement and locomotion, and lastly for transmission of signals for quick and efficient work. Based on this, we get the 4 major types of tissues as epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. So in this video, let's begin with the first type, that is the epithelial tissue. As the name says, epi is above, thus epithelial tissue is the one which lies above the entire body, forming a protective covering. Along with covering the body, it also forms a barrier between the various organs separating them. Now the structure of the epithelial tissue is quite evident from its function. Yes, since it has to perform a protective layer, it cannot afford to have spaces between the cells. Hence, we find the epithelial tissue to have tightly packed cells forming continuous sheets. The tissues lack intercellular spaces and has extremely small amount of cementing material. So every single substance that passes in or out of the cells needs to cross the epithelial layer at least once. Accordingly, the permeability of cells will differ in various epithelia depending upon the exchange of materials. Now, when we talk about all the epithelial cells in general, we need to first understand a common characteristic between them. May it be any different type of epithelia, all of them will always have the cells resting on a thin, fibrous supportive membrane-like structure. This is called the basement membrane. The basement membrane, apart from supporting, helps to hold the cells together in a single straight line to form a uniform and consistent layer. Okay, so getting back to the types of epithelia, in order to study them, let's take a simple example. Imagine this to be a basement membrane. Now, depending upon the functions, let's classify them. So let's say the first function is filtration. What kind of structure should be present according to you? Yes, it needs to be a very flat surface. So this type of epithelium is referred to as simple squamous epithelium. Now let's take up the next function, that is absorption and secretion. For this, obviously we would need a larger surface area, right? Which is why we have these tall pillar-like cells on the basement membrane making up the columnar epithelium. Now at times, we need the strength or support along with the larger surface area. In this case, we slightly change the structure to cube-like cells and form the cuboidal epithelium. Lastly, we have certain organs that need specialized secretions. So in such cases, we need to modify a few cells that would perform secretion of specific chemicals like hormones or enzymes. These are called the gland cells, and the epithelium consisting of such type of cells is called the glandular epithelium. Well, this was about the epithelial tissue in short.
Right, so here they try to explain it using the function, right? So the ones which help in filtration will be simple squamous, the ones which help in absorption and secretion will be columnar, right? The ones which help in giving strength would be cuboidal, and the ones which are secreting substances would be glandular, right? Yeah, the one thing I wanted here, I mean, to worth noting here would be the basement membrane, right? Like usually, if you draw anything, or if you know you are creating anything, you always say, right, that something has a base. The bottommost layer is the base, right? Even if you're making cooking something, suppose you're making a cake, right? So you'll have a base first, right? That would be maybe your tray, or a dish, or simply a plate or something like that. So basically anything which is the bottommost part, or the thing which holds everything together, offers you something to build on, is called a base. That's why this membrane which holds these cells together is called a basement membrane, right? Yeah. It's usually not asked, like you will not be asked the function of basement membrane or what is basement membrane. But yeah, it is good to have an idea that yes, there is something below on which these cells rest, right? Or on which these cells are standing, whatever, right? Okay, yeah. So the most important type of question you will get here would be, they will, they'll give you questions like, suppose, which type of epithelial tissue is alveoli, right? So they'll, yeah. So if you look at here, the location, so the most commonly asked question from this part of the chapter is this. They just directly ask you like, suppose columnar epithelium is found in stomach and intestines, right? So they'll just say the inner lining of the stomach and intestines is laid by, or is consists of dash. So you need to like memorize this column thoroughly, no exceptions, right? Because this is the favorite question they like to ask, because there's maximum confusion as to which is where, right? So maybe you can make use of that video, and you can should I write it in the previous one? I'll do that. Wait, let me go back. Yeah, here, no, I'll just write the functions here. You can also take it down so that when you're studying, maybe it might help, right? Yeah, so squamous, simple squamous is usually for protection, right? Or filtration, as she said, right? Columnar was for absorption. This is for secretion. And this was for something slightly higher variant of absorption, right? Absorption and strength, something like that, right? Okay. Coming back to our, yes. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this table has to be memorized. You can take your time, or you can find your own ways on how you remember it. Like, but yes, there is no exception. Like, they might, literally just pick out something new for you, or something not mentioned here. Like, yeah, kidney is mostly asked. Kidney is asked, esophagus is asked, stomach is asked. These three are the favorite ones, which I have seen multiple times, right? Yeah, and trachea, lungs also. I skipped that. Yeah. So these four are mainly asked. It keeps coming as fill in the blanks, one marker questions. Yes, right. Okay. A characteristics, not much. It is not asked. This is for you to remember the shape, right? If you can remember either the diagram, then from that you can get the characteristic, or if you remember the characteristics using this, you can get the diagram, right? Either one is sufficient. Right, function again would be epithelial, they will have similar functions, right? So yeah, okay, again, the most important part would be the location column, right? Okay, so like I mentioned, simple squamous would be large, thin and flat cells, right? They are present where blood vessels, lung alveoli, right? Lung alveoli is the uh, okay. I'll just draw a rough diagram, right? So okay, okay. So basically, from your mouth, you have this. There will be these two pipes, right? One will be the windpipe, and one will be the esophagus. I have not drawn the esophagus here. So if you are considering this to be the windpipe, which is basically the trachea, right? So there will be pharynx, larynx, right, and then trachea, and then this from here. Let's say this is the lung, right? Let me draw it. Suppose this is your lung, right? One part of the lung, maybe right lung. So what happens is this branches into these kind of shaped structures. These are called branches itself, which is bronchi, right? Bronchi, and then they subdivide into smaller tiny branches, like you see on a tree, right? Bronchioles, right? And then they finally end into these balloon-like structures, which are called alveoli. So don't get confused just because it's written lung alveoli here. That does not refer to the complete lung. It refers to this balloon-like structures only, right? So the lung itself is made of or is surrounded by columnar epithelium, right? But this alveoli portion is simple squamous epithelium, right? The lining of your mouth and cheek, right? The cheek has a very thin layer of cells. That's why when you bite your cheek, it hurts a lot, and it takes time to heal also, right? If you bite the inside of your cheek, the lining would be the inner part, right? The inside of your mouth and the insides of your cheek. Okay. Okay, yeah. Stratified squamous epithelium is our protective covering all over the body surface, which is basically the skin, right? Okay. Then there is columnar epithelium, which is the inner lining of the stomach and intestines, right? Ciliated you'll find in trachea, lungs, respiratory system, and buccal chambers. Okay, buccal refers to anything which means mouth. Okay. Mouth is also called the buccal cavity. So buccal chambers is anything pertaining to the mouth region, right? Okay. Should I write it here? Mouth. Okay. Cuboidal are definitely in the kidney tubules. You can remember the tube and cuboid, something they sound similar like that, right? So kidney will be cuboidal and in the ducts of the salivary glands, right? And glandular epithelium is present in the stomach, intestine, and pancreas. Okay. Why? Because it needs to secrete, right? Pancreas also, main job of pancreas is to secrete the enzymes, right? Okay. Okay, so yeah, there is this diagram here, which should help, right? I tried to use this. So maybe you can use this to remember both the location and the diagram together. Yikes. Okay. Using this one image, right? This covers all your types of uh, epithelia. Not all, glandular is missing here, right? But yeah, basic. So there is simple squamous is here, right? And then there is stratified squamous is here. They have written where it is found also. So simple squamous, air sacs, stratified squamous, esophagus. Okay, wait, let me just use the pointer. Yeah, simple squamous, I'm talking about this one. Stratified squamous is E, right? And then you come back to columnar maybe. Yeah. So simple columnar in the intestine. This is how it looks like. You can ignore this word. This is not required at your stage. So you can remember it just as ciliated columnar epithelium, right? Pseudostratified basically means it looks like a false layer, like it looks like a layer of cells, but it's actually not there. So pseudo refers to anything which is false, right? Like pseudopodia, false feet, right? Podia is feet, something like that. Okay, yeah. So if you remember this much is sufficient, that ciliated columnar epithelium, where it is found the respiratory tract, right? And then there is cuboidal, which is found in the kidney, right? And they have missed out glandular here. You can add it here, right? Intestine, pancreas, and stomach. Okay. Diagram wise, they ask you to draw simple diagrams of either cuboidal or columnar. I've seen those two coming a lot, right? Because they look similar also, so they like to keep asking which is which. Okay, so a simple diagram is good enough. You can refer to your NCRT for that, or you can draw the one from here also. Sorry. Yeah, the one from here also. Anything is fine. So this much is enough. That one stack of cells which look like a column, right? And in cuboidal, a stack of cells which looks like a cube. Make sure that they look a little different. That's all, right? So cilia will basically have small hair on top, right? That's all. Okay. Okay, so we are done with epithelial tissue. We are left with the three more, which is connective, muscular, and nervous. Out of which muscular and nervous is really tiny, like there's just very little bit of information to know. Connective is the one which is huge, which is confusing also. Okay. Yeah, so connective basically, as the name suggests, it connects all parts, right? So there are different types of connective tissues based on what it is connecting, right? Basic characteristics, it has a matrix and cells are embedded in it. Okay, what is a matrix, you might ask here, right? So matrix is basically a fluid like substance. Okay, why do I say fluid like is because it's not necessary it should be a fluid. uh, it could be a mixture of fluid and other sticky components, or maybe something else. If not sticky also, it might look like a fluid, but it's not exactly a fluid, right? So that basically the part in which the cells are sitting in, or the part which is holding the cells together, is what is called the matrix, right? Yes, the cells of the connective tissues are loosely spaced. Loosely spaced means they will have intercellular spaces, right? This is what it means, right? And embedded in an intercellular matrix, like I showed you here. This is what embedded means. So there is this substance. How can I explain you? Okay, have you seen this substance called slime? Has anybody seen it? Played with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Then let me change the question. Any of you who hasn't? Anybody who hasn't? Based on that, I'll use this as an example. If you haven't, then I'll change the example. Acha, okay. I think everybody has since. Okay, so if you've seen that slime, if you add anything in it, like there are some videos also where you can make your own slime, where you add in glitter and stuff, right? Or you add in colors or some particles, right? And you make your own slime. So you can use this slime to understand the concept of matrix and cells. So the slime here would be your matrix, right? That sticky jelly like. So it's also fluid like, but it's not a fluid, right? So you can consider that to be your matrix, and then anything you add on top of it, like suppose you've added glitter. So glitter would be your cells. Or if you add a bigger substance, sometimes you use I think people use it to remove I don't know, I saw it somewhere, like not the slime you play with. They have designed a different kind of slime to get rid of dust and dirt particles in the car, etc., right? Like a ball or something. So all that which gets trapped in the slime would be considered as the cell, right? So it's basically in the slime, but it's not. How should I say? It's kind of sticking to the slime. That's what you call by embedded, right? It's linked, interlinked with the slime. So you can use this to remember the meaning of a matrix and cells, right? Remember slime. Okay. Yes, so examples is like the matrix may be jelly-like. It could be a fluid also. It could be dense. It could be rigid. Dense basically means that it does not have spaces, or it does not resemble a fluid at all. It is tightly packed, or it has particles. something like slime. It's dense, right? Yeah, rigid would be does not it's not flexible, right? You are not able to move it, shift it. This all will be an example for bone or cartilage, right? So they come under the matrix in bones and cartilages are dense and rigid. You can't really move them, or you can't really call it liquid or fluid, right? Okay. Yeah, so these would be the characteristics, right? Yeah. Then location is it's found in the deeper parts of the body between the skin and muscles, right? Like I explained with that injection wala thing, what I was explaining, I drew a diagram, right? So usually you have epidermis. This is epidermis layer. Derma is skin, right? So epidermis or epithelial, all this is the same term. And then you will have this chunk of cells which are basically called the fat cells, right? Which act like a cushion. And then below this will be your muscle fibers, your blood vessels interconnected in those muscle fibers, etc. So all the important tissues and etc. are always below this layer of fat, right? Okay, so yeah, basically deeper parts as in here, down here, below, way below in the skin, right? Between skin and muscles. Okay. Yeah, so those that fat tissue is also considered as a connective tissue. So you could call this also as, this could also be your location, right? It depends on what connective tissue you're talking of. Based on that, the location will differ. Like if you're talking of blood is also connective tissue. It would be below this layer. If you're talking of the fat, it would be this layer, right? So it depends on what exactly which tissue you're talking of. Okay. And the basic function is just connection, right? It connects, as the name suggests, it will connect something. Again, based on what you're talking about. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, let me make a small rough diagram for you before that. Should we just, yeah. So as you see here in this flowchart, we have three subcategories in, yeah, here. We have three subcategories of connective tissues, right? And as it is mentioned here, so this is all what we have to cover, right? So you have different types of connective tissues, which is, one is known as connective tissue proper, right? The second one is called supportive connective tissue, and the third one is called fluid connective tissue. Okay, yeah. So then we just go to that. Yes. So there are two names for this. One is, it is called connective tissue proper, right? Or it is also known as loose connective tissue. Okay. There are three subcategories which fall under this type: areolar, adipose, and fibrous, right? Okay. So what are the basic characteristics? It is composed of irregular scales scattered and embedded in a soft matrix, right? And where is it is encompasses means it's basically, it covers, right? It covers all internal organs and body cavities. And its function would be, this is the function, right? Function is basically acts as a binding and supporting structure, right? As I discuss these subcategories, you will be a little bit more clear on the function, right? Okay. So types are areolar. Areolar is found below, between the skin and muscles, around blood vessels and nerves, and in the bone marrow, right? It fills the space inside the organs, etc., supports the organs, and helps in repair of tissues. Adipose is found below the skin and between internal organs and acts as an insulator, right? So like I said, let me show you the diagram, that will be more clear where is what found. Yeah, so here are the two difference, or the two cells, right? So areolar is usually found between the skin and the muscle, or like I said, yeah, let me draw it. So this is your layer of epidermis, right? Areolar will be usually found here. right? And this is your muscle and skin, right? So this is areolar. And areolar has all these different components, or these things are floating inside, right? What are they? This is macrophage. It is a type of WBC, right? Fibroblast is a type of cell, right? You, at this point, you can just remember it's a type of cell. Mast cell, again, it is WBC, type of WBC, right? These two are types of WBCs. Yeah, fibroblast and collagen fibers. Collagen fibers again would be a part of, would be a type of cell, right? Or a muscle kind of thing, if you would say, right? Adipose basically refers to fat, right? Adipose is the other name for fat tissue. So where will fat be? Fat will be everywhere, right? It acts as a cushion, right? For major internal organs, it is a cushion. So this is how it looks like: the plasma membrane, the nucleus, and the fat storage area, right? Okay, going back to that. Yes. So yeah, the main thing which you need to note here is fibrous tissue has two subcategories, which are ligaments and tendons. So this again is a favorite topic which keeps coming in the paper. Like, you will get only one small fill in the blank, but that's enough for you to, get confused and pull your hair, that which is which, right? Because there are four terms here. For the other two we'll do in the next slide, right? Bone, then you have something called cartilage, right? And then you have ligaments and tendons, right? So these bone might not be that confusing, but cartilage, ligament, and tendon, they might, being new terms, seem really confusing, right? Okay. So all you need to know about these terms is that ligament basically will connect two bones, okay? Whereas tendon will attach the muscle to the bone, okay? Very crucial point, and actually the only thing you have to remember. So ligament is bone to bone, right? As is shown here. Ligament will be bone to bone. You can remember this as your example, the bones in the fingers, right? This would be a ligament, right? Versus there is a tendon. Tendons do what? They join the muscle to the bone. So this area will be your tendon. Okay. Okay, and another thing you need to know is this point. You can skip the second point. First and third point, if you know, is sufficient. Which is what? Ligament is not flexible, right? You can't really bend your fingers in all directions, right? There is limited movement of your finger, right? You can just open and close it, right? So it has great strength but limited flexibility, correct? Versus tendon has considerable strength but high elasticity or high flexibility, right? Tendon is the one which lets you move or which helps in motion, right? Locomotion. So that is what will pull the muscle and relax the muscle, and it will tell, right? So that's a very important joint, or a very important connection, if you could say, right? So these, yeah, so the two questions which usually asked are like fill in the blanks, which is they'll just tell you dash join skeletal muscle to bone, or they'll be like tendon joins dash to dash. In either format, that question definitely comes. And second type of question, which is less frequent but sometimes it is asked, is the difference between the two. So that time you can add this second point of flexibility. Yeah, it just comes for 1 or 2 marks, so 2 points suffice that time, right? You can skip this middle point because this has new terms, and for that you need to go into details of what is collagen fiber and what is elastin, right? Okay, cool. So you can find your own way of remembering that tendon would be muscle to bone, and uh, ligament would be two bones, or you can remember it like this, right? M to T, M to B, something like that. M to B would be tendon, versus B to B would be ligament. I'm not really okay. The simplest way to remember would be okay. I just came up on the top of my head. I'm thinking of this. You can try your own method. Ligament has an M, right? So if it has an M, there is no muscle in the definition. There is no M in the definition, so no muscle involved. This does not have an M here, so there will be a muscle in your definition, right? Some random trick which I could think of. Yeah, definitely you will have better ways of remembering it. So yeah, you could use those, right? But yes, when you're remembering itself, just in one shot, try to remember the correct version and try to remember it, right? Okay. Yeah, again there is, I will skip through this table since again it has the same information we've discussed, right? And under fibrous tissue, both ligaments and tendons have been mentioned together. That's why I did a separate slide on that, right? Yes. Again, if you remember, this table is sufficient. All these are like good for revision. This is just for information purpose, usually not asked to draw, label, etc. Not really. Okay. The next type is called supportive or dense connective tissue. These are mainly act as support systems, right? So here they have told you what is the main matrix element, which is nothing but fibers, right? Okay, and it connects different tissues. The question which you get, are asked in this is the matrix for cartilage and bone separately. So this is very important. I am putting a star here, and this is very important. Since now you have more MCQ based questions, right? Yeah, so this comes in the fill in the blanks definite question. You know, they'll just say dash is the matrix for cartilage and dash is the matrix for bone. So you need to know that proteins and sugar form the cartilage and calcium and phosphorus compounds are the matrix for the bone, right? Okay. Other than that, yeah, the other question which might come is where is cartilage found, which is nose, ear, trachea, and larynx, right? It's there in the tip of your ears, right? That's why you're able to fold your ears, or you know, you can. They are a little flexible because they are not bones; they are cartilages, right? Same way your tip of your nose also. That is also a little flexible because the presence of cartilage, right? Okay. So yeah, that's all, and the difference is also there here. So bone will be strong and non-flexible, whereas cartilage will be a bit flexible, right? Okay. Again, the table. This is sufficient for you to know. This diagram sometimes comes as a labeling, so I've included the two. Labeling, or generally they might just give you this Haversian canal or something like this and then ask you to identify whether this is a diagram for the bone or this is the diagram for the cartilage. Explanation wise, I don't really have anything to explain here because these are all big terms which for that I need to you to I need to explain all the details of bone compositions or cartilage compositions, right? So at this stage what I can do is I can just help you in maybe right here what a chondrocyte is, right? Site basically refers to cell. Okay, so this is a cell which is a chondro type of cell. So again, chondro refers is a name given to anything involving bone or cartilage kind of things, right? So you can just remember that this is a type of cell. And matrix, now I think you should be familiar with the term matrix, right? So this is a type of matrix and it is called a hyaline matrix. And versus bone here they are trying to show you that this is a canaliculus, which is a slender process of bone cell or osteocyte. So site, like I said, it's a cell. You will if you continue to pursue biology, you will come across this term a lot. So site is a cell. Osteo refers to bone. So there is this disease which people over 40-50 start getting if their calcium intake is low, is called osteoporosis, where their bones start getting brittle, right? So osteo refers to anything called bones, right? And again, Haversian canal, it contains blood vessels and nerve fibers. So this is just a a glimpse of what bone and cartilage system would look like if you would dive into it in detail, right? Okay. So they might just give you this diagram and ask you that which is the bone and cartilage. Don't worry, they don't ask you to draw it. There isn't anything to draw in it, right? Okay. And coming to the last part of connective tissues, again, this is self-explanatory, nothing much to explain. Would be blood and lymph, right? So in blood, plasma is our fluid matrix. Again, a very frequently asked fill in the blanks. So matrix questions are the favorite ones for fill in the blanks, right? Which is the matrix for what, right? So plasma is the fluid matrix. It contains protein, salts, and hormones, right? And blood contains RBCs, WBCs, and platelets as the cells, right? Okay. And the function of blood, yes, this is like a well-known fact, right? It will transport gases, uh, yeah, hormones, waste materials, etc. And you have another fluid connective tissue which sometimes people miss out is the lymph system. So we have an just like we have the entire circulatory system which transports blood throughout, we have an entire system called the lymphatic system which transports lymph. The main function of this fluid is like how should I say, they act like a cleaner kind of thing. So they uh, something like garbage disposal. I wouldn't say garbage disposal. I mean, their main function is to clean. So whatever microorganisms or etc. these WBCs kill, or these foreign organisms you find, right? So the lymph has the charge or the responsibility of, taking those away and disposing them. That entire work is done by the lymphatic system. So that system is as elaborate as the circular system, right? We have lymph nodes, we have lymph vessels, etc. So nodes are the places where this fluid will drain, right? And yeah, all these microorganisms or these pathogens or which are threats will be chucked off there in the nodes, right? Okay. Yeah, again, this is what we discussed. That's it, right? Throughout the body. This is just an example. So, blood actually looks like this. The red color is imparted by the RBCs, as you might know. But we are always under the impression that, the entire thing is just RBCs, which is not the case, right? The liquid is actually plasma and it's actually a yellowish color liquid. Again, if you happen to continue with biology, at some point you might get a chance to, do experiments with blood, like, maybe see your drop of blood under a microscope. That time you might see all these cells in detail. It's really amazing to look at, right? Or you might even do experiments further, which lets you centrifuge blood. When you centrifuge blood, what happens is these components separate by density, and you will see this plasma as a very clear yellow liquid, right? As is shown in this figure. Just like that, you will be able to see it if you centrifuge blood. All these components separate out, right? Yeah. This picture here is not clear. I just wanted to show you lymph capillaries and how they are interlinked with the blood vessels, right? So this is the artery, the red. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the artery, right? And this is the vein. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am. I couldn't hear you at all. Ma'am, could you repeat?
Till what part? I mean, from where do you want me to repeat?
Ma'am, when you started explaining the the arteries.
Acha, okay, okay, not an issue. Okay, so yeah, this diagram basically I wanted to show you the connection or how the lymph and the blood are actually linked together. This is what this diagram shows here, right? So this is the artery, the red one, right? This one here, and this would be the vein, and they form this network. So wherever you have a organ system, right, or wherever, suppose this is your liver, so near that, the blood vessels, they form this tiny network of capillaries, right, which are very thin, so that the diffusion occurs faster. So these capillaries are found, you know, at small distances. So yeah, Based on what wherever the exchange is necessary, there you will find capillaries, right? Okay. So here it basically shows how the lymph system, which is the one in the green, right? The green one is interlinked in the capillaries, so but they actually function as two complete different systems. So the blood and the lymph don't intermix, they don't drain into each other. They are complete independent systems, but they are interconnected, right? So the entire system of vessels or lymph vessels is also connected like this here, right? And they will be up and down like this here, and they be on the same path as the blood vessels also, right? That's I just wanted to give you an idea that it's not an isolated system as such, because this is also a circulatory system, right? But they are interlinked. Okay. Yeah, this is just a small uh, yeah, sorry, it could be like a summary kind of thing, where all the different types of connective tissues are at a glance. I mean, I think because I zoomed in, the image is not clear, little blurry. I'll see if I get a better one. I'll replace this before sending the PPT. Right? Again, this is just for you to get an idea where what is, right? Like where is adipose? Where is the loose connective tissue would be areolar, right? So this is areolar. Areolar is here. Adipose will be here, etc. Cartilage is here. So this is all the different ones together in one picture, right? Yeah. We don't really have much time, so I'm skipping the video. I mean, it is a nice one, but since there is only theory in connective tissue, it is just a repetition of the theory. So there is nothing much to explain. Like you can use it as a revision tool when you are tired of reading and you want to continue studying, but in different format. You can come back to these videos, right? Okay. And this is the last part of the chapter, which is muscular tissue. Okay, muscular tissues characteristics are they have elongated cells, and these cells are also called muscle fibers, right? And as the name suggests, they'll be responsible for movement, right? Muscular is always movement related. Okay, this is also asked as a fill in the blank. That is why I mentioned the point here. Other than that, there is no further use of it at this stage, right? Muscles contain special proteins called contractile proteins, okay, which contract and relax and cause the movement, right? I think you might be knowing how muscles work. So muscles work by alternate relaxation and contraction, right? That's how we are able to move them. We are able to move our fingers, our arm, our leg, etc. All the muscles, right? All the voluntary muscles, right? And this is done by these proteins, which are basically contractile proteins, which are a combination of two proteins, actin and myosin, right? If again, if you continue this field, you will come across it in detail, and the complete mechanism of when actin and myosin start regulating the movement, or how do they do it, right? Okay. So yeah, this comes as a fill in the blank, that how do muscles move. So you can write the word contractile proteins there, right? Location mostly attached to bones. Yes, there are three main types of muscles which you need to know. One is skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Right? Skeletal is also, the other word would be voluntary, smooth or involuntary, and cardiac. Right? Cardiac, of course. Cardiac refers to the heart muscles. Cardio is heart, right? So you'll hear whatever, if you hear cardio anywhere, it is matters pertaining to the heart. Okay. Yeah. Skeletal or voluntary, these muscles have striations. What are striations? Basically bands. Okay, let me just write bands here. Okay. To help you remember why bands, I can connect these two for you. So actin and myosin, are actually present in the form of bands, right? Hence the light and dark ones. Okay, that's why they have, you can remember it like that. So there are two contractile proteins, that's why two bands, and that's why they will have light and dark appearances, right? So striations are basically bands, and yeah, this is how it looks like. Smooth, it's called smooth because it lacks bands or striations, right? And these are all involuntary muscles. Involuntary would be the muscles which we cannot control, right? Like all the muscles in the intestines or muscles which involved in the alimentary canal mainly. Cardiac muscles also. We
And they
cannot.
are hard, and they are involuntary, right? Cardiac.
Yes, correct. They are involuntary. Yes. We cannot control our heartbeat, right? So anything we cannot control is called involuntary. What we can control is called voluntary, right? Like you move your fingers, you can blink, all that is voluntary, right? Okay. And you have cardiac, which is heart muscles, yeah. So these also have striations, alternate light and dark bands. Okay. This part, you can ignore, is also fine. You don't need to know what is an intercalated disc. You just need to know the rough diagram. So skeletal and cardiac are very similar, like quite similar. So distinguishing between the two gets little difficult at times, right? But you can use maybe the type of bands or maybe the location of the nucleus as a distinguishing factor here, right? Yes. This entire table is important, I mean no exception, because in this they don't like to ask uh, separate questions, right? They will directly give you a 5 marker and ask you to distinguish between these three types, right? So how will you distinguish is based on a characteristic. Sometimes they may say just write the difference based on characteristics, or based on just the location, or based on just the function, or sometimes they leave it to you. They just tell you for 5 marks you write difference between points, right? So yeah, so you need to know that striated. So these are all the different names for the same muscles. Either they are called striated or skeletal or stripe or voluntary. Same way you have a couple of names for involuntary also. Cardiac is only cardiac, there is no other name. Usually you don't refer to it as heart muscles, it is called cardiac only. Right? Okay. And these are the characteristics and the location, right? Involuntary, like, yeah, if you can remember what we cannot control, the iris of your eye, internal organs, digestive tracts, uterus, urinary bladder, etc. You can't control all those, right? So all those would be where the involuntary is found. Whereas voluntary is everywhere. So you could give location. If they ask you to pinpoint particular locations, you could give arms, legs, etc. Right? Fingers. Okay. And the functions also. Okay. Another important table here is the difference between, right? Again, this is there in the chapter notes book also, and I have added it here. This I would suggest that use it as a last resort. Should I write it here? Use as last resort. Why? Because why am I saying use as last resort is because these are just one word points. Teachers or examiners don't really like when you write just one word in difference between. They like complete sentences, right? So you refer to the previous table better. This you can refer to just remember the points, like, okay, I need to write about non-striated, so write the complete point here, right? Instead of just the words, right? Yeah. That's why last resort. Everything is correct in this table. There's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, I would suggest you use complete sentences to write the difference between. Okay. And we have the last part, which is the nervous tissue. So nervous tissue, you only need to know that the nervous system comprises of three major components, which is the brain, spinal cord, and nerves, right? And the cells are called nerve cells or neurons, right? And one neuron may be up to a meter long, right? Okay, that's it. And yeah, the main function is the nerve impulses allow us to move our muscles, right? Nerve impulses are the ones which help you move your finger when you're too close to anything hot, or when you're trying to, even you've accidentally, if you touch a pinhead, right? The sharp end of a pin, if you've accidentally touched that, or if you are, you know, in any kind of danger situations. Reflexes, yes, yes, Aryan, yes, exactly. Reflexes, yep. So this is the nervous system is the one which lets you do that. Actually, even every small thing, that suppose you want to lift your finger right now, so that also, that impulse is actually going to the brain via the nervous system, that you would like to lift your finger. Or when I'm trying to when I'm trying to write something on the board, so my brain is sending the signals everywhere that, okay, hey, let's move the finger, we need to write, right? All those things are transmitted by nerve impulses, right? Basically, they are the people who relay signals. That's what it's called, right? So the combination of nerve and muscle tissue forms the fundamental part of the fundamental process of any organism. Why? Because this is what helps us move and do all activities, right? These two together, like the example I gave. So, right now, writing is the example I can think of. Uh, after class, maybe you would get up from your seat, right? Again, that is the same. Uh, the same process will occur that time, that the nerve impulses or the signals will be sent to your brain, and the brain will then direct all the muscles to move and enable you to get up from your seat, right? So without these two together, you would not be able to function or exist, right? That's why it is a fundamental process, or the fundamental components, right, of any organisms which move, basically animals. Okay. In nervous tissue, yeah, there's nothing much to remember except the diagram which is here. This is the only thing which is asked and commonly asked. Yeah, it is a simple diagram. Also, you can refer to this to draw, or the one in NCRT, anything which you're fine with, right? So, just a brief description would be, a neuron contains a cell body, right? So this is the cell body here, this entire structure which looks like this, right? This is the cell body, right? And then it has this one big branch which is called the axon, which terminates into these terminals known as axon terminals, right? And then they have small branches also, which are known as dendrons and dendrites. So here only dendrite is shown. Suppose this is your cell body, then there is this big branch, and then which goes into smaller branches like this, right? So this big branch is called a dendron, and these smaller branches are called dendrites, right? Again, explaining to you, because if you find dendron somewhere and then get confused or be like, oh, we didn't do this, so just I am explaining it to you. Diagram wise, if you just write dendrite is sufficient, right? Okay. Of course, cell will have the nucleus, right? And axon, like I said, the biggest branch is called the axon, which ends in the axon terminals, right? And then the next cell body will continue like this here. So this same image, you copy paste it here. This is how it will continue, right? And how are they connected is this way. This small branch, this dendrite will be here, right? And again there will be an axon here, correct? So there's this small gap here is enough for the signal to jump from one nerve cell to another, and like this there is this continuous line of nerve cells which help in conducting impulses, right? So these line of cells will form the tissue, and that's how the impulses are transmitted. So they jump. It's called jumping of impulses, right? Because there's always a gap between this one end and the starting of the other neuron, right? So they'll jump from here to here. Okay. Other things is not really required to explain. What is a Schwann cell? I'm not sure if I should explain this at this level, so that it be. And then there is node of Ranvier, or however you pronounce it. Okay, you can remember whichever is your favorite Ranveer actor, and just remember to include him here, right? Okay. Myelin sheath, like I told you, the sheath is basically a covering, right? So there is this covering made out of myelin, which is called a myelin sheath, which covers the axon cells, right? Okay. These three are just for you to label these three. Okay, one, the node of Ranvier, Schwann cell, and myelin sheath. I can't really explain much about it at this stage. The other components you should know, like what is axon terminal, axon, nucleus, dendrite, cell body. You should be able to explain also what are they, right? Okay. So yes, that brings us to the end of our chapter. Uh, I if you feel like the animal tissue part was a bit, I mean, if it felt like we rushed towards the end, we might I will take up another session maybe later, maybe when you have this in your exam or something, as a recap, right? For now, what I would suggest is I will share the PPT, and you can go through the videos. So after every topic there is a video link, right? Everywhere, if you notice, below here in the end of the slides, at the foot of the slides, you will find video links. You can watch those for now, right? Okay. Anybody has any doubts as to what we did right now? If you have any doubts. No doubts? Okay. Did I put you all to sleep?
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
No doubts.
Okay.
Mama.
Okay. If you find it boring, or if you would like, you want more videos, or you want me to change the approach also, let me know. Okay. Anything you have, you can tell me. Not an issue at all. Okay. ठीक है. ठीक है then. We are done for the day. I will see you tomorrow then. And yeah. Before tomorrow's class, I want you to read cell chapter and come, so that when we
Ma'am,
do this.
ma'am, actually, ma'am, tomorrow there's an parents orientation for my class, so I have to
Yes, ma'am.
attend that at 5 o'clock only, ma'am.
5 o'clock, 5 to 6.
Okay, 5 o'clock है ना? ठीक
Yes,
है
ma'am.
then. Tomorrow तो we have practice session, so I'll try to wrap it up by 4:30.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
हाँ.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
We'll practice cells, so
Thank you, ma'am.
you can read the chapter and come. हाँ. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.